Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I'm back for Ask the Nick number 11. And first off, I want to thank everybody who's been supporting the channel. All the folks who've been loaning me some really incredible knives, thank you. All the people who are liking, sharing, subscribing, etc. Beautiful thing. And all the people who are on the Patreon who are supporting me financially and, getting access to early sales, things like that. That's a beautiful thing. Patreon.com/TheNickShabazz. But nonetheless, I can't do this without you guys, and it's making it a lot more fun and, frankly, a lot more financially sustainable. So, thank you very much for that. One thing, a quick program note. I've been working a lot on the filming and on the backgrounds. I used to shoot on just a plastic bare table, which worked fine, but it was a little bit too bright with the studio setup, and honestly, it looked a little low budget. I switched to some very matte black cloth, which worked okay, but I had some auto exposure issues, and now I found this stuff, which is just a contact paper, foamy sort of thing, but I like it a lot. Let me know what you think, but you're going to be seeing reviews with a bunch of different backgrounds for a little while here as I get through the back catalog. So keep that in mind, and don't worry too much about it, I'm still working on it. So let's go ahead and jump into the questions. So, first off, the revelation that I work a great deal with sound and that I'm actually a PhD has spurred a lot of questions. People asking me to do things like audio reviews, audio gear, talk a little bit about that whole world. And I'm happy to. I want to keep the focus of the channel on the gear, but at the same time, I got some opinions there. So I'll probably sprinkle a couple of videos on that in throughout. If you don't like it, apologies, but you can skip to the next one. But anyways, Grunik asks, as a doctor of sounds, are you into music? And if so, what do you love? You got a gem or two you want to recommend? Sure, I love music. Practically speaking, my favorite genre is probably electronica. I was raised on it. I love it very, very much. But I also love classical music because I see a lot of fun parallels there. I love rock. I love some hip-hop and some rap. Folk music's got a place. It's near and dear to my heart. And what I'll do in terms of recommendations is I'll put a playlist over there, which just has some songs by some people I really like and really recommend. If you're not interested, don't need to check it out, but if you are, there you go. And I'll try and throw in a couple of more obscure people you might not have heard of and that you might really enjoy. So there you go. Great question there, Grunik. Let's move on. Everyday Gary asks, are there parallels between your music and your EDC preferences? And also Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. So, believe it or not, yes, there are. I'd never thought about this until you asked this, but sure. I tend to enjoy precision in the details in music. This is part of why electronica is so appealing to me. There's a great deal of detail, and classical too, for that matter. And when the details are done really right, when that little chunk in the back is working just perfectly, I love it. I also tend to like more minimal music, whether that means minimalist in the classic sense, Philip Glass, Steve Reich, that kind of thing. Love, love, love. Or more minimal electronica. Vector lovers, I'll put one of their stuff out there. But there's also a joy for me, just like in knives, with a touch of tradition. This is an Almar, which has a touch of tradition. There's joy there too. So I do love some good old-fashioned folk influences, and I love when genres collide a little bit with respect. And in terms of Zeppelin or Floyd, I'm a Pink Floyd guy. I'm not huge on it, but I do very much enjoy Wish You Were Here. Great album. And, great question there, Everyday Gary. Really weirdly deep. I appreciate it. So 387 Knives has a bunch of questions. First off, do you only deal with sound and recording waves from the air, or have you done any sound analysis in water? No, I don't work in the sonar field. Underwater acoustics and sonar is a huge field. A lot of people are in it, and it pays really well, because the military is always really interested in ways to improve sonar detection, things like that, for chasing submarines around, among other reasons. So, but it's not my world. I love talking to those folks when I bump into them at conferences and whatnot, but no, I tend to stick to the air and the humans and whatnot. That's a little more interesting to me. He also asks, has your work ever discovered something new or completely groundbreaking? Well, I've discovered some new things, and I've broken a little bit of ground, but they're not huge, big, bold discoveries. That's not really my style, although it's interesting enough, certainly, to play with those sorts of things. I prefer the approach where you take something that's big, and that would be an entire career or several of them to solve, and you chip away at it little by little. You look at a small part of the problem and attack it, and do it cleanly, and do it in a good, controlled way, so that each time you know a little bit more than last time. And by doing that, you can make big progress, but you do it at a nice, regular pace, that really allows you to take the time to do it right. Big, bold discovery people have a role, but it's certainly not my role. Good question, though. He asks, what do you think of the bloop signal? And was it just ice quakes or something else? The bloop, for those of you unfamiliar, is great reading on the Wikipedia, but it's a hugely loud underwater noise that was detected in the South Pacific someplace. Really cool stuff. There's a whole Wikipedia article on unexplained underwater noises you can spend some time with. But it really baffled a lot of people for a long time. Scientists are now pretty damn sure that it was ice cleaving off of Antarctica that created this incredibly loud sound that traveled forever and ever. But I don't know. Could be Cthulhu. I'm not an underwater acoustics guy. Not 100% sure. Finally, he asks, will you use your powers for good and set up sound equipment to finally catch Bigfoot? I'm in the wrong part of the country for Bigfoot, 100%, and honestly, as far as I'm concerned, the very last thing that Bigfoot needs is to be caught. I feel kind of bad for the guy if he's out there. He's the lone Bigfoot jackass wandering around in the forest, and if the humans catch Sao, he's gonna have a bad time. So I'd just as soon he go out there and keep on doing whatever it is brings Bigfoot joy, if he exists, and yeah, so there you go. Great questions there, 387, good and creative. So Jason asks a very, very personal question. Have you ever tried doing your own ano, or do you have any experience with putting a color on your ano? Nicely phrased there, Jason. For those of you not in the know, he's talking about anodization. Anodization is the process of using electricity to change the color of titanium or another metal. This is a blue anodized SMOC SK23, and this is a bronze anodized ZTO900. Anodization is something you can do at home. All you need is a power supply or some 9-volt batteries, things like that. But honestly, it's something I would rather leave to the pros, personally. I don't do it very often, and for me to invest in the equipment required would probably cost way more than it would cost to send it out and get it professionally done by somebody who's really good at it. And honestly, I'd rather support somebody who's really good at it than spend, 6 hours of my time and a whole bunch of my money doing it myself. But, everybody's got a different life, a different line, that is, and a different life. And if you want to give it a try, that's great. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Well done, Jason, asking a dirty, dirty question. Moving on. So RoboJim asks, do you listen to podcasts? And if so, what are some of your favorites? Honestly, I don't do that much podcast listening. There are some great podcasts out there, but often I just use YouTube. I use YouTube Red and just download the videos I want to watch on the way to work or listen to on the way to work there and just do it that way. But there are some great podcasts. Everyday Commentaries, Gear Geeks Live is pretty good. There's actually been some rumblings of me going on there at some point. He's pretty busy, but I'd love to make that happen. But the podcast I love most and that I miss most is Car Talk. I know it was a radio show, but still, I listened as a podcast mostly, and oh my God, was that the greatest show ever. It's just two jackasses from Boston talking about cars and laughing, but it was the best thing ever. I learned so much, and I laughed so many damn times off of that show. I miss Car Talk so much, and it really broke me up when one of the brothers passed recently. But if I could be a tenth of the entertainer that Tom and Ray were, I would be a stellar. I could quit my day job. But anyways, Car Talk was a great thing, and it's still out there. You can still get old episodes. If you've never listened to it, you really, really should. Stellar, stellar stuff. Great question, RoboJim. So Forrest asks, I recently purchased a ZT-0450. Thanks for your encouragement. Hey, sure. Sorry to make you spend money. And the titanium handle looks different than the titanium handle on a Chris Reeve Sebenza. Are there different alloys of titanium used in the knife industry? Well, sure there are, but the bigger factor is surface finish. This is a Chris Reeve Sebenza, Chris Reeve tie lock. You can see here that the titanium on these two knives looks very, very different, even though they're from the same place. On the Sebenza here, it's been bead blasted and I believe chemically treated to make it a little bit darker, as opposed to this guy where it's stone washed and more polished. That surface distinction can make titanium look very, very, very different. Each of these is titanium, but it's all a question of how it's finished. The different alloys, by and large, just don't matter. In the knife world, and in the pen world for that matter, you got 99 problems, but different titanium alloys are not one of them. I've never found a reason to care. That said, in watches, it does actually make a difference. I had a Citizen watch that was titanium, and it was on the lower end, and the titanium just scratched up like crazy. It wasn't terrible. It just made it look very, very worn very, very quickly. This Casio Oceanus is a higher-end watch that's also in titanium, but it's in a titanium that's much more, it's like a super titanium. I forget if that's the trade name they use, but it's much harder and it's much more scratch-resistant, and it shows. So if you're buying a titanium watch, then you want to think about the alloy and look for something that's scratch-resistant. But if you're just doing knives or pens, titanium differences are not really a big deal. Great question, though. So Kerry R. Whack asks, have you ever turned down a piece of loaner gear? And if so, why? Well, first off, I will try not to turn anything down where I can if it's interesting, but I will often ask for delays. If I've got too much on the table already, or I've got somebody with a time constraint. I'd love to send you my blah, 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 but I deploy in October. Can you get it done by then? Well, yes, I can. So there were a lot of people who are currently waiting around to send me gear, and I appreciate that so much, and I'm getting to it. But, yeah, so I try to delay where I can, but sometimes I do say no, even though I'm still grateful. Stuff that I've already reviewed is pretty easy. Things that I just don't review, like automatic knives, balisongs, huge fixed blades, brass knuckles, things like that. Those things I'm not a very good reviewer for, so I don't bother there, because I don't use them. Sometimes people offer to send me things that are really personal, like, you want to review my grandfather's pocket knife. Well, yes, but I don't want to be responsible if something happens to it badly. My wife gave me this Sebenza on the day my child was born. Like, you keep that at home. In the post office, I'd feel like a jerk if the post office lost that. Sometimes people offer to send things that are really heavily modified. A little anodization is fine, or a non-factory edge. No problem. But if you've, ground a finger choil into it and back serrations and Cerakoted the whole thing with Hello Kitty characters, it's no longer particularly representative of the group on the whole. And then finally, very rarely, I'll turn somebody down if I just get the sense they're not going to be happy with the process. If they've got unrealistic expectations, you can't carry the knife. Well, that makes it really hard to review it. Or, if there's one single scratch on it, I'm going to be pissed. Well, in that case, it's probably best that I don't expose it to any risk. You might as well hold on to that one. That's very, very rare, but it does on occasion happen, and so I just go ahead and move on past that guy. Still, I appreciate every single offer. So, yeah, I try not to, but occasionally it does happen. Good question there, Kerry R. So Kerry R. Whack asks, what loaner knife would give you shivers of anticipation, whose arrival would cause you to pitch a pup tent in your scientific boxes? Nice. So, there are a lot of knives I'd like to check out, and I'll just list a couple of them. The Spyderco Endura's on my list. The Cricut Homefront with the quick disassembly looks interesting. Spyderco Chicago is a small, interesting knife. The Benchmade Mini Monolock looks pretty cool. I've handled the full size, and I'd love to check out the Mini, but I don't want to pay their prices for it. Bark River Adventurer is a small fixed blade knife, which I think is pretty excellent, and I'd love to check out. The Paragon Knives Warlock is interesting, really weird. You pinch it, and it opens up, and then the blade flips out, and then you close it again. I want to see how that thing works. The Chris Reeve in Cosi Lodge, or the Sebenza 25, same idea. I'd love to check out just to see as a comparison with the smaller one. That'd be interesting to see. And then I'd love to check out something by Rockstead one of these days. So those would really excite me. And yeah. There is some higher-end stuff that would bring me joy, too. I think the core of the channel, though, is production and small batch. I don't want to go the skeleton route of just talking about $1,000 customs. That's not that interesting. I have more fun with production and mid-tech sorts of things anyways. But there is some exciting custom stuff out there. I'd love to see a Gareth Bull Chamois or Warlock, a 3-inch front flipper. Nothing to argue with there. I'd love to see some of John Graham's higher-end stuff, the guy who makes the Razel, the GL or the GT. That'd bring me joy. I'd love to see a Shirogorov custom division knife, particularly one of the neon customs. I'd just love to see the contrast there, and I'd love to see something on roller bearings from them. That'd be cool. I'd love to see a Southern custom flipper. That'd be great. I hear he does really good work. I'd love to see a Todd Begg full bodega. I know that's probably not going to happen. And speaking of not going to happen, I'd love to handle a Stan Wilson non-flipper flipper, which is a really unique knife, completely different than anything else, with the bolsters acting as a flipper and a backlog. Oh, I would pay a lot of money to be in a room with one of those for 10 minutes just to handle it and see what's up. But, yeah, so great question there, Kerry. That's what would make me pitch the proverbial tent in the reviewing department. There you go. So N6EAJ asks, Nick, besides a cell phone, do you carry any other radio communications devices like ham radio or CB? No, I don't really. I mean, this watch is radio controlled, but that's not what you're talking about. Honestly, if the cell phone networks are down and I can't send an email, the internet is down as well, then I'm up a creek. But the thing is, none of the people I'd want to talk to in that situation are going to be on that anyways. And I'm not so important that it's absolutely crucial that I be able to communicate with the rest of the world. If I don't come into work tomorrow, no one dies. And similarly, my fiancée can take good care of herself. We'll meet up at a, predetermined point where it needs to happen. So, I'd love to get more into ham radio and learn about that, but I just don't have the time. And at the end of the day, the people I'd need to communicate with aren't using that either. So, great question, though. Do love the cell phone, I'll admit that. Tricky Ricky asks, have you ever gotten negative or positive correspondence from knife makers from your reviews? Yeah, on occasion. When I did a sneak preview of this little guy, a Cody Utzler custom, Cody actually reposted it on his Instagram feed, and I've talked with him since about some things related to knife, but, he's been pretty kind about things. I actually got an email from Tom from Shirogorov Knives, who is their English speaker, and he's they loved my videos, apparently, on the Shirogorovs. Had some little clarifications, namely that Recon 1 is going to be handling a lot of their parts distribution in the States, and also said I had a really good Russian accent, which, oh yeah, way to go, thanks, Tom. Brad Southard left a really kind and constructive comment on my Tolk review. I got a lot of respect for him for that. Cricket, Columbia River Knife and Tool, left a very cordial comment on my Jettison review. Even though it wasn't a terribly good review, they said something along the lines of, we appreciate hearing the good and the bad. That niceness actually inspired me to pick up a Cricket Swindle for review, which you'll be seeing on later. So well done, Cricket. That was classy. And then finally, the biggest compliment I've ever gotten from a knife maker comes from Z Hunter, in that they have not yet had me killed. I figure they must be contemplating it, but they feel like there's something good enough over here to avoid sending the ninjas my way, or the zombies for that matter. So I think we can count that as a positive reaction. Great question there, Tricky Ricky. Let's move on. So Other Beard asks, will you ever bring examples of cutting things into your videos, like apples, like you mentioned? That's probably not, honestly, because when I'm watching a review video and somebody spends 5 minutes cutting into things randomly, it honestly just bugs me. I'm not learning a whole lot beyond them just saying this is a good slicer. This isn't a very good slicer. A lot of it depends on technique and whatnot, and you can show things cutting, the Graham Razor I love a lot, but it's not nature's perfect slicing tool. Yet I can still cut and make it look just about as effortless as the Shirogorov Neon, which is a truly excellent slicing tool. So, at the end of the day, no, I'm probably not going to do a whole lot of cutting demos, except where it's particularly relevant and meaningful. Yeah, but that's a good question. It's a fair question, and maybe someday I'll change that, but for the moment, don't count on that being a staple in my reviewing. So Soggy Avenger asks, hey Nick, are you an ice cream or a frozen yogurt guy? Yes, in general I am. Look, I love soft serve way more than I love hard ice cream, but soft serve ice cream versus soft serve frozen yogurt, to me, honestly, it's all good. I just as soon have either one. I'm a sucker for weird flavors, though. There is a place outside New Bedford, Massachusetts that has coffee black raspberry swirl soft serve ice cream. Oh my God, is it good? It makes my heart sing. I'll be real here. So that's as close as I come to having a strong ice cream loyalty, although a good cookies and cream, like the Spyderco Sage 5, is a beautiful thing. Great question there, Soggy. So Frank Wrights asks, there are endless YouTube videos on sharpening. How do you make sense of them all? Any ideas? Honestly, that's tough, because sharpening is something that really takes time and effort, and just to get the intuitive sense of, oh, okay, I feel a burr on there, I better hit this through some cardboard, or needs a little more love on this side, and also needs the right equipment. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere trying to sharpen M4 with a medium sharpmaker stone. You can keep the edge sharp, but past the point, you're going to need better gear. I'm not saying it's all about gear, though. At the end of the day, it's about experience. Any jackass with, a high-end sharpening kit can get okay results, but somebody with real skill who's just working with a $5 bench stone is probably going to get better results. So give it time. And one thing I really encourage is to get some cheap knives. This is a little Walmart special I'm going to be reviewing. Oh, boy, howdy am I. But, get one of these and beat the crap out of it. Sharpen it until it's just a stub. And you'll learn a lot from doing that process, and then move up to something maybe a little harder, like OS8, then maybe S35, and then maybe once you got things right, you're ready for something a little harder to deal with, like S30V or M4. Oh, God help you with M4. But it's just something that's going to take time and it's going to take experience. There are some really good sharpeners out there on YouTube, and I'd listen to them. But at the end of the day, nothing substitutes for sitting down and just getting a feel for it. I wish I had a more intellectual answer for you, but at the end of the day, it's just a question of skill and practice. So, Spat Family asks, Nick, what's the worst cut you've ever gotten from a knife? Well, from a pocket knife per se, it's probably off of this guy. This is a Cody Utzler custom knife, and unfortunately it has the property that the blade edge is way, way too close to the back of the spine, and so that my thumb, if I put my thumb here, I can actually touch the blade. That's bad, that's dangerous, it's not a great thing, and you'll hear about that in the review for this guy. But the very first day I carried this guy, I had it in my pocket, and the clip is very stiff, so it takes a lot of force to pull out of your pocket, and so I grabbed it like this. I'm not actually going to do it because I don't want to cut myself open, but I grabbed it like this, and then I pulled. And when I pulled, the blade just cut my thumb open right down the middle, and it was really ugly. I just sharpened it the night before. And so a cut that's right on your thumb here is a pain in the neck to heal because you use your thumb all the time. And so a lot of liquid bandages and tape and whatnot. Later, I have healed it up, but that sucked. Let's be real there. And so I'm walking around with this big old thing around my thumb for the better part of a week. Ugly, ugly, ugly. The other issue, I shave with a straight razor on occasion. I don't do it very often anymore because it takes a fair amount of time. Usually I just use a double edge razor. But when I was shaving with a straight razor, one of the key things you need to know as you're shaving is that you always want to go perpendicular to the blade. Your motion should always go like this. You should never go sideways. You should never move parallel to the blade because then it just cuts you right open. And early in the process, I made a nice big parallel cut along my cheek and just ended up with like a 1.5 to 2 inch long little gash. It wasn't very deep, but it bled like a crazy, and I think I actually had to teach that day, and so I walk into class and I've got this 2-inch gash in my cheek, and it looks like Zorro went after me and, only managed one of the cuts. I mean, it was kind of hilarious, and everybody who asked, like, what happened? I gave them a different answer each time, like, oh, pirates, ninjas, that kind of thing. Zombies, don't worry, it's not contagious. And they bug me. Yeah, I shave an injury. But that was bad because it was just right on the face. It healed up nicely because it's a very sharp edge. But I felt really stupid on that one. All it takes is a little bit of side-to-side motion, and you got yourself a problem. This is why you should never shave with a straight razor when you're really, really tired, by the way. So I'd say those are the worst cuts. The one on the thumb here was probably the most annoying cut, and the one on the face there was probably the worst one. Hopefully I never best either of those in the future, although, no, we kidding. It's probably going to happen. Great question there, Spat Family. So, Mitchell Delmar asks, who's your favorite anti-hero and what knife would he or she carry? Good question. An anti-hero, for those of you not to know, is a character that you kind of love to hate. It's a main character who's not good by any stretch of the imagination, but you're still following and you're still cheering for. Good examples of this might be Heisenberg in Breaking Bad, although by the end he was pretty much a villain. Or Dexter Morgan is a much clearer anti-hero in the Dexter show. Even Tony Soprano, you could make an argument's kind of an anti-hero going on. My personal favorites from the show The Wire, which is an incredible show on HBO. Omar Little robs drug dealers for a living, killed a whole bunch of people. Not necessarily a stand-up guy, but you really do like him and you cheer for him. And he was a gun guy, so I don't know that he would carry a knife, but if he did, it would be something really murdery, like the Spyderco Civilian or the ZT-452 or something completely out of control. I can see that being his choice. My absolute favorite anti-hero of all time is from Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. Really incredible book. Absolutely. I know you're not here for literature recommendations, but Crime and Punishment's crazy. It's a book that you read and it feels like you've got a fever in July and you're going a little bit crazy. Dostoevsky is great at being crazy. And if you're going to read it, read this translation. Pevir and Volkonsky, way, way better. Best English translation ever, closest to the Russian. Anyways, moving along. Rodion Raskolnikov is the main character there. Classical anti-hero, absolutely batshit insane. Um, and unfortunately, Mitchell, he doesn't carry a knife. Not to spoil too much, he carries an axe. So, there you go. Great question, Mitchell, and hope you guys enjoyed this version of Ask the Nick, and Ask the Nick and Literary Advice, I suppose. Great book. Crazy, crazy. And if you got any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down there. I've already got enough questions for Ask the Nick 12, so they'll be going in 13 at this point. But hope this was interesting, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful and heroic rest of your day.